I knew it.
So I finally finished playing Silent Hill 3 and I decided I want to talk about it as well. This will be the last Silent Hill I'll be playing in a while because now I've played all of the games except the Book of Memories and I don't like that game, so I'm not gonna play it. I'm gonna start with the bad ones as always and I'm gonna move on to the good sides of the game. First of all, when we're talking about the bad sides, we have to mention that Silent Hill 3 is way too combat heavy. Unlike other Silent Hill games, it has more enemies in here. It has just a lot more combat. It just forces you in fighting as much as possible. If you go on the really low difficulties, a lot of these enemies are not there or there's just less of them, which would then basically, in my personal humble opinion, put it about as combat heavy as the average Silent Hill game. But I did not like the fact that on the normal difficulty or on higher, there's just so much fighting to do. It just feels like there's too much of it. The next thing that really annoyed me is the fact that there are way too many non-openable doors. You enter a room or a corridor, and in the corridors it's especially bad. You have like 15 to 20 doors, and out of these maybe 3 are actually openable. Everything else is just placeholder doors, and it really feels bad. I understand that there are office buildings and stuff like that, and there should be doors. I get it, perhaps it's more realistic, but what it essentially does is it forces you into combat again, because if there are enemies around you, you either could try to walk around them and then try every door, but as you're going from door to door, you're gonna get attacked and probably lose some health, or you're gonna have to kill the enemy so that you can explore in peace. And that's usually a decision I would make. That is very annoying. It forces you to fight. Even through these side mechanics, it forces you to fight. The next thing that I really hated is the fact that the game uses cheap ways to kill you at times for no reason. Heather can fall through different gaps. You are in a subway train, and if you go outside, you see this animation where you're suddenly in the first person. It looks almost like it's a cinematic, but if you press anything except the turn around button, you actually fall off the subway. It's like she plunges to her death. And there's several other places where if you walk on the lines, although there's never a train coming, as soon as you get on the train lines, one appears and runs you over. So there are a lot of cheap deaths, and that's something that really frustrated me. The next point is that the story takes too long to unravel. Quite honestly, at the beginning the game is as boring as it can be and absolutely gives you no motivation to go on except to see Heather stay alive and survive this nonsense. So later on, as the story kicks in, it gets better, but it takes quite some time for that to happen. The next thing is that the camera does the cheap tricks that we know from other games as well. Essentially, you will oftentimes not see the enemies because the camera is at an angle which only shows your character and a little bit of the room. You hear the enemies are there, you hear them coming, but you don't see them. So either you have to move out of this camera angle, or if you're lucky, the manual movement of the camera is available, which in many cases is not, so you can't really fix the camera. So essentially, you're gonna get a few hits without being able to counter it, or you're gonna pull out the gun and shoot a few bullets. That risks wasting these valuable bullets, so it's not a good idea. All in all, camera is crap. The next point is that the combat is pretty bad, and that is made worse by the fact that we have tank control. So if you want to hit stuff, you better be aligned with it well. The same goes for shooting as well as fighting with melee weapons. I just found it to be really bad. I did not enjoy it at all, and I thought it was made artificially hard because you have these enemies, for example the dogs, which I think they're called double heads actually. They are very agile and fast, and they move really well while you're having these tank controls. So Heather is essentially a tank on the battlefield. You have to turn her left to right and then press forward so she walks, making analog sticks really a bad idea in most cases. There is a way to change the control type, and then analog sticks are more comfortable, but then you can't use certain things, like for example the instant turnaround doesn't work as well and stuff. So I actually opted for the tank controls simply because I was used to them by now. I want to address that I played the HD collection, which is for the PlayStation 3, and the HD collection is as buggy as it can be. We have shadow bugs, we have cinematic bugs, we have synchronization bugs, we have replaced sounds. It's just a mess. It ran okay. I mean, there's a patch that came out and that fixed most of the problems, but it's still just a mess all in all, and I think that is very sad that they remade a game, and all they really had to do is take it, for all I care, take the PC version, upscale it a little bit, because the PC version with the proper mods still looks much better than the PlayStation 3 version. Since I play on the HD HD version, I was having the alternate voices here, and that has good and bad effects. The negatives are, for example, Claudia, whose voice is just really uninspired, boring, and definitely does not feel like the right voice actor for the job. Whereas Heather, in my personal opinion, sounds better than the original. She does a really good job altogether. Vincent does a good job. So I've watched other people who are trashing these voices, but personally I think they're really good. Just Claudia's voice is awful. It absolutely doesn't fit at all. Otherwise, everyone else, I'd say, actually got an upgrade. The next point is that, while I said that the story takes time to unravel, once it does, it gets really interesting, awesome, I would even say, and it's really, you will want to follow it and see how it all ends up. So that's pretty cool. Another thing that I like is that there are references to other games, especially if you have a Silent Hill 2 save game, then you're gonna get specific references from Heather about certain places that also are in Silent Hill 2. She's straight out gonna talk about it, which is really cool. The game offers a lot of replayability. While you don't have that many endings, you do get a lot of rewards for playing the game in certain ways, and some of them are a lot of fun. The game can be very scary, but that's mostly achieved through the intense combat through which you're forced. So I'm actually gonna go as far to say that I'm not liking that. It doesn't scare me the way, for example, Silent Hill 1 did, or Silent Hill 2 for that matter, or even Downpour. It's a double-edged blade. I know a lot of people think that Silent Hill 3 is the best game out of the series. I respectfully disagree. The good thing about the story is that it kind of rounds up Harry's story from Silent Hill 1. You see what happens. They kind of talk about the cult again. I generally do not like the cult, but this particular story fit for me. I liked it. I enjoyed the story, but again, I prefer the way it was done in Silent Hill 2. But that's just my personal opinion. And last but not least, I do like that there's so many cool weapons, and there are also things that happen after you play the game once, like for example there's the pipe lady in the water and stuff like that. They're interesting and funny things. I like that about this game, and I really wish that the American teams could learn from Team Silent and implement more of these goofy things, especially to add replayability to a game. Now, this has been a very short review, and the fact of the matter is that I played this game in the HD version and it had a lot of problems, but I did enjoy it ultimately. And after the patch, at least mechanically the game works well. It doesn't crash. I didn't have any slowdowns. These are things that were actually happening before the patch. So the game ran well for me. I enjoyed the new voices much more than I liked the old ones, with the exception of Claudia again. And ultimately, I think the game is a lot of fun. It is, for me, absolutely not the best game in the franchise. I do not like how they went overboard with the whole fighting thing. It just feels way too intense in terms of fighting. Although you're still encouraged to actually avoid most battles, you're going to have to fight. But the scenery can be very interesting, especially at the end of the game when you enter the carnival. That's when also the bosses get more interesting. So I don't want to spoil the game too much for you guys. I advise you go and try it out for yourselves. It is one of the best Silent Hill games, and it is the third one in the series, and it is one of the games that was made by the original Team Silent. The Japanese guys had their typical Japanese influences there, so the monsters are grotesque and there's all this weirdness in the game. You do feel this Japanese touch somehow. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and if you liked it, be sure to check out my other reviews. Thanks for watching and have a great day.